Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. I didn't plan to invite company. Steam curled up from the tub like a promise, warm and blurring the edges of the bathroom mirror, yet there he was in the doorway, a silhouette framed by the hallway light, casual in a way that made my breath hitch. Our eyes met and everything around us tightened. The house shrank to the narrow strip of floor between us, the cracked door a thin, deliberate invitation. My pulse thudded loud enough to be its own soundtrack. I felt it in my throat, a staccato answering the hush of water against porcelain. He didn't step in. He didn't need to. The space between us vibrated with unsaid things, playful, dangerous, deliciously unformed. He smiled, that half-sure, teasing smile that always made me forget how to be guarded. For a second the world stopped, the faucets drip, the faint hum of the heater, the whisper of my own breath. Then his hand lifted, not toward me but to the doorframe, fingers resting there like punctuation. The casualness was the point, unfinished, as if he'd left a sentence hanging and I was the only one who could finish it. My skin prickled where the steam met air. I could imagine the heat of his presence without him closing the distance. He cocked his head, and that small motion did more than words could, an invitation folded into mischief. I let my eyes drop, feigning calm, but the truth sat heavy and bright in my chest, an excited, guilty light. He stepped forward just enough for the doorway to frame him fully, clothes slightly damp from the drizzle outside, hair still escaping a comb, expression cautious and curious all at once. A laugh hovered in my mouth, embarrassed and bold. He leaned closer, close enough that I could see the flecks of color in his iris, the small freckle near his jaw, the way his breath fogged the edge of the glass. He spoke, one word, soft, deliberately casual. It should have been harmless. Instead it landed like a minor chord that, unresolved, made the air hum. My hand tightened on the tub's edge. Behind his sentence lay a question I hadn't been asking myself until that moment. Before I could answer, the bedroom light blinked across the hallway, someone else coming, shifting the pivot of the moment and throwing everything into a sharper, urgent focus. He looked at me, eyes raw with something like decision, and the word died on both our lips. The door creaked as footsteps approached. He tilted his head as if listening, then, without breaking that intense gaze, he took one more breath and moved, just enough to close the distance between us to a hair's breadth. And everything right then asked the same impossible thing: what if we didn't stop? The sound from the hallway grew louder, the cliff dropped. She hadn't always looked at him that way. There was a time when their dynamic was simple, routine greetings, polite nods, an occasional shared meal in a house that felt more like a waiting room than a home. But something had shifted over the months, small, silent changes. A longer glance here. A missed goodbye there. It was subtle, like a house settling, but inside her, it felt seismic. Her marriage had dulled into habit. Comforting, yes, but predictable to the point of silence. Dinners filled with clinking silverware and safe conversations. Her husband had stopped asking about her day, stopped noticing the soft changes in her new earrings, the perfume she bought just to feel something different. They shared a bed but not the warmth. That kind of emptiness seeps in slow, like a chill beneath the floorboards. And then he came into the picture, not a stranger, but never fully part of her world until recently. He was older now, with edges that weren't there before, quieter, more observant. At first, it was harmless, little things. He'd bring in the groceries when no one asked. He'd laugh at her jokes that no one else heard. He noticed things. That was dangerous. There were moments, the way his hand brushed hers when passing the dishes, or the way he leaned just a bit too close when asking a question. Once, she caught him looking at her, not in a crude way, but in a way that made her feel seen. It was the kind of look she hadn't been given in years. She pretended not to notice. But she did. He was careful, always respectful, always leaving just enough space to deny anything if asked. But there was something in the way he lingered. In the way he asked if she was happy. In the way his gaze stayed a beat too long when she wasn't looking directly at him. That kind of tension doesn't need words. It just breathes on its own. She found herself waiting, listening for his footsteps in the hallway, noticing when he didn't come home on time. She hated herself for it, but she couldn't stop. Not because of what he did, but because of what she felt. It wasn't about action, it was about possibility. And possibility was intoxicating. One evening, they stood by the kitchen sink, rinsing plates. The rest of the house was quiet. Their hands met in the soapy water, and neither moved. His eyes lifted to hers, serious, careful. There was nothing said. Just that charged silence, full of everything that hadn't happened, yet. She pulled her hand away, dried it slowly, heart thudding so hard she was sure he could hear it. He stepped back, but not far. Close enough to be an idea, not a decision. And she wondered, not for the first time, what would happen if one of them stopped pretending. The tension had started to press down like humidity, thick, invisible, always there. They spoke less, but their silences said more. Every shared glance felt like a match struck too close to dry wood. It wasn't just attraction anymore, it was pressure. And neither of them was handling it well. She noticed it when another woman laughed at one of his jokes in the living room, a guest, someone from his world, carefree and unburdened. He smiled back too easily, too comfortably. Something twisted in her chest, sharp and sudden. She told herself it didn't mean anything. But she couldn't unsee the way that woman touched his arm like it belonged to her. Later, in the hallway, she passed him without a word. He stopped, just long enough to say, "Are you mad?" She shook her head. "Why would I be?" But her tone said everything. He watched her go, jaw tightening. He wasn't dumb, he saw it in her eyes. That flicker of something too strong to name, too dangerous to admit. It matched his own. Later that night, she sat alone in the dim light of the den, sipping wine she didn't even like. The door creaked behind her, she didn't turn, didn't have to. She could feel him watching her. "I didn't think you were the jealous type," he said, low, teasing. She exhaled, slow. "I'm not. Not when it doesn't matter. Doesn't it?" She turned now, meeting his gaze fully. The air between them tightened. They didn't touch. They didn't need to. The room felt charged, thick with everything they weren't saying. His fists clenched at his sides. Her breath caught when he stepped closer, not touching, just there, crowding the space in a way that felt like both a challenge and a confession. She wanted to push him away. She wanted to pull him in. Instead, she whispered, "You should go." He nodded, but didn't move. "Say it like you mean it." Her lips parted, but the words didn't come. Not this time. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. Inside, everything stayed still, on the edge. Waiting. The storm hit harder than expected. Power cut out just after sunset, plunging the house into silence, save for the rhythmic drumming of rain and the occasional low rumble of thunder rolling in the distance. She found him in the kitchen, lighting candles. The flicker lit his face in flashes, sharp cheekbones, tired eyes, the curve of a jaw she knew too well. He didn't look up when she stepped in, but he didn't have to. He always felt her presence like a shift in gravity. "No signal, no Wi-Fi, and no lights," he said with a smirk. "Guess we're stuck." She folded her arms. "There are worse people to be stuck with." That got his attention. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was thick, layered with what-ifs and unfinished moments that had stacked up over weeks. When he handed her a candle, their fingers brushed, and that one touch felt hotter than the flame. They ended up in the living room, wrapped in blankets, sitting on the floor inches apart. Shadows danced on the walls while the wind whistled outside. Her hair was still damp from her rushed shower, and she felt bare, somehow, even in full clothes. I keep thinking, he said, voice low, if one thing had gone differently, we might not be in this position. She turned her head slowly. What position is that? He held her gaze. This one, where I can't stop thinking about you. Her breath hitched. His words landed somewhere deep, unguarded. The kind of confession you can't take back. Her chest tightened, and yet, she didn't look away. Not this time. He leaned in, not enough to touch, just enough for her to feel the heat of his skin, the quiet throb of restrained emotion. Her heart thundered louder than the storm. Outside, a flash of lightning lit the room. Their faces caught in that brief second, too close, too charged. The shadows settled again. She whispered, barely audible, "This is dangerous." He replied, almost in a breath, "I know." And still, neither of them moved. Then, footsteps. Someone upstairs. The spell cracked but didn't break. He looked toward the sound. Then back at her. "Do you want me to go?" The air had never felt heavier. She stood near the front door, hands trembling, the flicker of candlelight from the living room still glowing behind her. The storm had passed, but the storm inside was just reaching its peak. He was there, right in front of her, close enough to touch, and everything in his eyes begged her to stop pretending. Weeks of glances, of near misses, of words they shouldn't have said were now boiling over. "I can't do this anymore," he said, voice raw. She blinked. "Do what?" "This, pretending it's nothing. Pretending I don't wait for you to walk into every room. Pretending I'm not losing my mind over you." Her throat tightened. "You think I don't feel it too?" He stepped forward, slow, hesitant but deliberate. "Then why do we keep stopping?" "Because," she started, then faltered. "Because it's wrong. Because if we cross that line, there's no going back." He shook his head. "We crossed it the moment you looked at me like that in the kitchen." The silence that followed was brutal. And then, the sound of keys. A lock clicking. The front door turning behind her. Her husband was home. She froze, pulse exploding in her ears. He was early, he never came back this early. She stepped back instinctively, but the man in front of her didn't move. His eyes were wild now, not afraid, not ashamed, but something darker. Something that said, "Let it happen." The door opened. Her husband stepped inside, damp from the rain, briefcase in hand. He paused at the scene, his wife facing the man she was never supposed to stand so close to. Eyes locked. Breaths caught. Nothing spoken, but everything said. His eyes narrowed. "Am I interrupting something?" Her mouth opened, but no words came. The other man didn't flinch. "Actually, yeah. You are." The confession hung in the air like broken glass. Her husband laughed once, cold, sharp. "So it's true." "What's true?" she finally forced out. He looked at her, jaw clenched. "You think I didn't notice? The way you've been drifting? I knew something was going on. I just didn't think you'd do this." Her heart broke in real time. Guilt, shame, and anger twisted all at once. But the twist wasn't over. Her husband's expression shifted, sad, tired. "I've been seeing someone too." The room went silent again. Only this time, it wasn't just forbidden attraction in the air, it was freedom. Explosive, terrifying freedom. She looked between them, one man she'd loved, one man she wanted, and suddenly, no more illusions. No more pretending. The air was electric, too quiet after the storm, too still after what had just been said. She stood between two men, each holding pieces of her past and future. Her breath came in shallow bursts, her chest tight, as if her own heart couldn't decide which way to beat. Her husband set the briefcase down with a soft thud that cut through the silence like a warning shot. I gave you everything, he said, voice cracking with hurt masked as control. I trusted you. Her lip trembled. I know. I didn't plan for this. I didn't want this, but you didn't stop it, he snapped. You let it happen. She turned toward the younger man, the one whose presence had burned holes through her stability. He didn't look away. I didn't mean to start anything either. But I'm not going to lie, I don't regret feeling it. Her husband laughed bitterly. Of course you don't. You never had anything to lose. That landed like a punch. She stepped in. This didn't happen because I wanted out. It happened because I've been gone for a long time. You just didn't see it. He looked at her, wounded and furious. And you didn't say a word. You just drifted off, right into his arms. Tears welled in her eyes now. Because you stopped seeing me. I became furniture in your life. Useful, silent, easy to ignore. The three of them stood in the wreckage, emotionally stripped, raw and exposed. Her husband exhaled hard, eyes wet but sharp. Then we're done. She nodded, even though it shattered her. We have been for a while. We just didn't want to face it. He grabbed his coat and left without another word. The door slammed, and the silence that followed was heavier than the storm had ever been. She sank into the arm of the couch, shaking, overwhelmed. The man who remained didn't rush to her side. He waited, eyes full of both worry and restraint. Do you want me to go? He asked, voice careful. She looked up at him, tired, broken, but free. No. But I don't want you to think this is some perfect ending. It's not. He stepped closer, kneeling in front of her. I don't care about perfect. I just want real. Her hand found his. Finally. Fully. It wasn't romantic yet. It was survival. Truth. Beginning. The storm outside was gone. But inside, something new had just started. She hadn't planned on falling apart that night. But somehow, in the quiet that followed the storm, the chaos, the confessions, the crash of everything she once thought was solid, there was peace. They didn't speak for a while after her husband left. The door had closed, and with it, a chapter that needed to end. The silence wasn't awkward. It was soft, healing, necessary. She sat on the couch, blanket wrapped around her shoulders, and watched the candles flicker on the table. Across from her, he sat still, eyes never leaving her, but not pressing either. It was the first time in weeks, maybe months, she felt truly seen without having to earn it. You okay? He asked finally, voice hushed, like he didn't want to scare the moment away. She nodded slowly. I think so. It hurts, but not the way I expected. He leaned forward. You don't have to figure it all out tonight. I know. She smiled a little. But it feels like I can breathe again. That was all it took. He reached for her hand, this time not cautious or accidental. Just real. She didn't flinch. She leaned into it. For the first time, she let herself fall into what had been building for so long, not just desire, not just tension, but something deeper. He pulled her gently toward him, and she rested her head on his shoulder. No rush, no questions. Just the rhythm of breath, the heat of skin, the stillness that comes when two people are finally safe enough to stop pretending. I never wanted to be the reason your life fell apart, he whispered. You weren't, she said softly. You were the reason I stopped pretending I was happy. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in warmth and quiet understanding. The candles burned lower. The world outside had calmed. Inside, something new had finally begun. He kissed her then, slow, tender, with none of the chaos from before. It wasn't the kind of kiss that led to wild decisions. It was the kind that meant something. A kiss that said, We made it through. And for once, she didn't feel torn or guilty or afraid. She just felt home. Sometimes, love doesn't arrive when you expect it. It finds you in the wreckage and helps you rebuild.